Hello, sixth graders. We are going to talk about seasons and the different times of the year. The first thing you should do is take your foldable, make sure it is folded up, cut on the dotted lines here, fold on the solid lines. You should have 4 separate flaps to talk about the 4 different seasons, and this should be pasted into your folder like shown here. Pause the video if you need more time. Next, you're going to go to your table of contents. You are going to fill out the title for today, which is going to be Seasons Notes. And you're going to put today's date and the page number. Pause the video if you need more time. Open up the first flap that is titled Equinox, Autumn, Fall. This occurs in September. When you open up the flap next to date, you are going to write September 22nd or 23rd. These dates can shift depending on if the year has an extra day called leap year. In February, we will add an extra day every 4 years to add in for 365 and 1/4 day each year. So that way, the 4th of the day doesn't end up allowing our seasons to be shifted. So sometimes we will celebrate equinox on September 22nd or the 23rd. The tilt during the fall equinox is not tilted towards or away from the sun. It is in the middle. You can see here the axis of the earth tilted. It's not tilted away or towards, it's in the middle, which is why we experience those middle level temperatures at the autumn equinox. Length of day. All locations on Earth experience 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness. As we're experiencing right now, our seasons are starting to change and we're starting to shift the amount of daylight that we're going to have as we go into a different season. You can see here in this image that we have an autumn equinox, and so the sunlight is equally amount on top and on bottom. Northern hemisphere is going to be losing the daylight just like we're experiencing right now. We are located here in the northern hemisphere and we are experiencing less daylight during the daytime. We are also experiencing our temperatures decreasing. If you live in the southern hemisphere, you're experiencing the opposite. They are having spring right now in the southern hemisphere. Next will be winter solstice. Winter solstice. This occurs on December 21st or 22nd. The tilt is going to be the northern hemisphere tilted away from the sun. When the northern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun, this is in December. We know what kind of temperatures we have during December, and it's going to start to get cold. And that is because we are tilted away from the sun during this season. Remember, this is occurring as the Earth is orbiting or revolving around the sun. Length of days. Daylight time is going to be shorter. That does not mean that we don't have 24 hours a day. It means that the day amount of light we're going to have is shorter. If you live in the North Pole, you're going to have 24 hours of darkness in the winter solstice. If you live on the South Pole, you will have 24 hours of daylight. So in the northern hemisphere, we're experiencing winter, but in the southern hemisphere, they will be experiencing summer. So something interesting to think about is in the December months, it's actually very hot in places like Australia. As you can see here, the northern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun, so they get less direct sunlight. When sunlight hits the surface of the earth indirectly, daytime is shorter, meaning the amount of light we have, and the temperatures are going to decrease because of the amount of sunlight we are getting. This yellow line here, please note that this is the equator. The equator typically gets the same amount of sun all year, which is usually why people like to go south in the winter to be able to be closer to the equator. Next, we will have the equinox. Please note that the prefix of equinox also means equal. So we're going to have equal amount of daylight and darkness. This is the spring or vernal equinox. It occurs in March 20th or 21st. We're not tilted towards or away from the sun. This map over here is going to be very key on tests that you have coming up for Unit 3. Where the Earth is located in orbit kind of tells us where we are in our seasons. In the spring, it is very similar to the fall, yet we are moving towards summer. We have equal amount of sunlight. In the northern hemisphere, we are gaining more daylight. We're going to have more hours of sunlight outside. Temperature is increasing. We're getting closer to those summer months where the northern hemisphere will then be tilted towards the sun. So the last one we're going to talk about is our summer solstice. This occurs in June 20th or 21st. The northern hemisphere is going to be tilted towards the sun, and our days are going to be longer. If you live in the North Pole, you're going to have 24 hours of daylight, and the South Pole will have 24 hours of darkness. This only lasts for a short period of time where you actually have 24 hours of that, but it does occur around this date, June 20th, 21st, and then they start to get shorter again. Please note where the location of the Earth is and the tilt of the axis of the Earth in location to the sun. Also know that if the northern hemisphere is pointing towards the sun, that would be summer in the northern hemisphere, but the southern hemisphere in June experiences winter. When the sunlight directly hits the surface of the Earth, that is the summer. Again, we noted the equator before. It still has some direct sunlight. Daytime is longer. Temperatures increase. The Earth revolves around the sun, and the hemisphere tilted towards the sun changes. So depending on where you are located will tell us what season you are in. So A, when you're in the northern hemisphere, it's tilted towards the sun, and this would be summer. C, over here, it's tilted away from the sun, so that would be winter. B and D is when the northern hemisphere neither tilted towards or away from the sun, so we have spring or fall. Make sure you have all of this information written down in your folder as we will be checking it tomorrow.